Something you should know about me, something that most people in my actual life know about me and are sick of hearing me talk about, is that I'm a big fan of John Steinbeck. I've actually just finished reading the 14th book of his that I've read. That was actually The Wayward Bus. And before I read that, like literally the week before, I finished my fourth or fifth. I don't really want to get into it. I kind of don't remember because the first couple of times I read it was like 10, 15 years ago before I tracked this stuff. But like at least my second reread of East of Eden since 2024. I just finished that reread recently. So those are my credentials. That's my proof. That's my evidence that I'm a Steinbeck fan. And as a Steinbeck fan, I'm interested in hearing what the people are saying about Steinbeck. You know, like what are the thoughts about him? What are other people saying about him? What do other people think about his work? Have they canceled him yet? Because I feel like it's only a matter of time. Every single time I open a Steinbeck, I'm like, this could be the one that really gets him canceled. So far, so safe, so good. But anyway, yeah, I'm interested in hearing what people are saying about him. This is the only author that I've read that I like actively seek out academic analysis on. Now, do I read all of it? No, but do I one day hope to read all of it? Yes, and the hope is what matters, right? So one day I'm perusing an online archive of some kind, which will be unnamed, and I'm trying to see, you know, what are some articles I can read about John Steinbeck, because I think I just finished like The Grapes of Wrath and I was like, oh my God, this thing is genius. Like I need to know what the people are saying. And I see this book titled Bloom's Modern Critical Views, John Steinbeck. And I'm like, hey, I've heard the name Harold Bloom before. If you have not heard the name Harold Bloom before, well, congratulations. I actually don't really know what he's about. He's mainly known for like being a Shakespeare scholar, right? He knows everything about Shakespeare. He loves Shakespeare. He thinks Shakespeare is like the bee's knees, the best thing to ever exist, which I'm not going to argue with him on. I really liked Hamlet when I read it. King Lear was good. Romeo and Juliet, don't talk to me about. I hated that, right? But like, those are the only 3 books I've read. I'm not going to argue the impact of Shakespeare's or his quality and talent, okay? Not interested in that. But anyway, he is like a big literary critic, okay? I know that much. So big, in fact, that he has these Bloom critical editions that are a collection of other people's analysis of authors or works. And so he did one for John Steinbeck. And I'm like, fantastic. I want to see what this man says. He actually didn't write any of the articles in the book, or he didn't write like any of the chapters in the book. So there's a comparative analysis between The Pearl by John Steinbeck and The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. There's one on Of Mice and Men. There's one on The Red Pony, A Study in Narrative Technique. Happy Wife and Motherdom, The Portrayal of Ma Joad, The Front Line of Poverty, Working at the Impossible, The Presence of Moby Dick in East of Eden. I have not read that one yet because I haven't read Moby Dick yet. I have to read Moby Dick before I can read that one. Revisiting the Sea of Cortez with the Green Perspective, Natural Wisdom, Steinbeck's Men of Nature as Prophets and Peacemakers. That one sounds really good. I bet that's about To a God Unknown, which I love. Steinbeck's Light, and then Steinbeck and the Great Depression. Okay, none of those articles or chapters, whatever, are written by Harold Bloom. The only thing he wrote for this book was this introduction. And I want to read you the first paragraph of this introduction. It is almost 40 years since John Steinbeck died, and while his popularity as a novelist still endures, his critical reputation has suffered a considerable decline. His honors were many and varied, and included the Nobel Prize and the United States Medal of Freedom. His best novels came early in his career: In Dubious Battle, 1936, Of Mice and Men, 1937, The Grapes of Wrath, 1939. Nothing after that, including East of Eden, bears rereading. Now, he does go on to say it would be good to record that rereading his 3 major novels, which I assume he means In Dubious Battle, Of Mice and Men, and The Grapes of Wrath, is a valuable experience from an aesthetic as well as an historic perspective. The rest of this introduction, it's like 2 more pages. He's not a nice man, okay? This is the only thing of Bloom's that I've ever read, is this introduction, this 3-page introduction. He's not a nice man. He does not think very highly of John Steinbeck, and he does not want to hide that from you. Now, that is his opinion. I'm not here to argue with that. I'm not here to argue with anyone who doesn't think John Steinbeck is a good writer, because we are never going to see eye to eye. That's fine. You can have your opinion. I won't even get into the fact that Of Mice and Men as one of his top 3. Oh, Harold Bloom. That is the moment I knew. Now listen, I like Of Mice and Men. I have not read In Dubious Battle, so I cannot speak to the quality of that. And I would hands down agree, The Grapes of Wrath is in his top 3. But Of Mice and Men, number 6 for me. Not even in his top 5. Now, I will admit that is a bit of a taste thing, and I will say I do probably have the contrarian take on Of Mice and Men, as it's not in Steinbeck's top 5, but that's a different conversation. I want to get back to nothing after that, including East of Eden, bears rereading. And this is not a takedown on Harold Bloom. I cannot argue against him. Also, he's dead. I don't want to be mean to him. He has done more with his passion for literature and his focus on literature and these books published than I will ever do in my entire life. So like, I don't really care. I'm not here to argue with him. Obviously, rest in peace, big guy. I hope you enjoy heaven not reading John Steinbeck, because you don't deserve that in your heaven. And I guess you don't want that. But like my heaven, I'll be reading John Steinbeck. Anyway, this is more just like a moment to say, first off, he's wrong on this. I don't want to argue about anything else. But to say with a straight face that East of Eden does not bear rereading, not only is it a wrong statement, it makes me sad for him. This video is not the East of Eden video. I would love one day in my life to make the video on East of Eden, to break it down. I think it would be hours long. There is so much there. It's a 651 page book. There are so many characters, so many themes, so many incredible lines. And I think it is an incredibly rewarding reread because it is so long, because there are so many characters and small little sections that you're looking me in the eye and you're telling me that in chapter 55, when you're reading one of the last conversations between Lee and Cal, you're remembering in crystal clear detail chapter 3, which is one of the best chapters in the entire book. And that's chapter 3. And you're on chapter 55, the last chapter, another one of the best chapters in the entire book. You're telling me when you're reading Lee and Cal talk, you are remembering in crystal clear detail the monologue that Cyrus, Adam's father, is giving him about war in the military and what it means to be a man. I know you're not remembering that. You can't remember that. You cannot remember that clearly because that was 640 pages ago. It really does make me feel bad for people when they're like, oh, I would never reread that, or I won't reread that, because I'm like, you're going to forget that. Like, I know you will forget that conversation in chapter 3. And if you've read East of Eden and you're like, wait, what conversation? Go read that chapter. It is incredible. It is its own self-contained story in that chapter. And then you have 600 pages between that with plenty of other standout, fantastic chapters and moments and monologues between the end. And then when you get to the end, you're so focused on the beauty of the end and what it means and forgiveness and crying and joy and like cathartic release that I know you're not remembering chapter 3. So it makes me sad. I had read this introduction a couple of months ago. I don't know. Like I said, I was reading a lot of things about Steinbeck at that time. The reason why this introduction came back up into my mind with my most recent reread of East of Eden was not because of that chapter 3 monologue, although I thought about it a little bit then. It was something that happens about 42% of the way through the book. It is a very small, minor moment. Most people, when I read this, even if you're a big East of Eden fan, are probably going to be like, okay, that doesn't bear rereading. But I just want to say, like I said, this is my 5th or so time reading it over the course of probably 15 years. And this is the first time I ever really considered this moment. This moment was not previously annotated before this read, so I had no memory of it, and I never remembered even like pausing at this moment or finding it interesting or funny. And this is a moment where Samuel Hamilton is going to his wife Liza and saying, hey, I need to go over to the Trask farm. I know you don't want me to, but Adam still hasn't named his 2 sons. He is like in a weird spiral depression mode, and I know you don't like me going over there because it kind of rubs off on me, but I must go. I have to help him name his sons. Like, this is important, and I need to like snap him out of his rut. And surprisingly to Samuel, Liza's kind of okay with this. She says, quote, if you do not get those boys named, there'll be no warm place in this house for you. Don't you dare come whining back saying he wouldn't do it or he wouldn't listen. If you don't, I'll have to go myself. I'll give him the back of my hand, Samuel said. No, that you won't do. You fall short in savagery, Samuel. I know you. You'll give him sweet-sounding words, and you'll come dragging back and try to make me forget you ever went. I'll beat his brains out, Samuel shouted. He slammed into the bedroom, and Liza smiled at the panels. So it was in this scene when I was reading this, and I highlighted that, and I said, LOL, that's funny. And I realized that this was the first time I had ever considered this scene before, and I realized it was really the first time that I found joy in the Liza Hamilton character, and I always just kind of considered her one of the stereotypical Steinbeck background female characters that aren't really that interesting. I've always considered her like that, and this was a moment where I was like, I'm wrong. Liza is way more interesting than I ever considered before. So that was the moment where I thought about this sentence. Nothing after that, including East of Eden, bears rereading. And I'm just here to tell you, Harold Bloom is wrong on this count. I don't want to argue with him. I don't want to argue with anyone on anything else that he says about Steinbeck or whatever. I don't even know all of the things that he said about everything. I'm sure I would disagree with a lot of things, but I'm not even going to get into the other books that I think bear rereading, but focusing just on East of Eden. I hope that if you've read East of Eden once, maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you reread it. I promise you, it is like coming to a new book every single time. Even if you had perfect memory and recall of everything, which I doubt you do, you are an older person now, and that is going to make certain sections and characters stand out more. When I first read it, all I cared about was Cal and Kathy. I hated Adam. I've never considered Cyrus before or Charles. The first time I read it, I didn't even understand why the Hamiltons were in the story at all. I said, Samuel's taking up all of this screen time, like get back to the boys. I didn't get it at all. Okay. And even then, I still loved it. I felt like I didn't get half of it. And every single time I've reread this book, I have considered other characters for the first time and began to love them. So back in like December of 2024, when I reread it for the first time in like 10 years, I really fell in love with Samuel Hamilton and Adam Trask. And this time around, I really fell in love with Tom Hamilton, Liza Hamilton, Charles Trask, as well as Abra. That was the first time I'd ever really considered those four. So yeah, the point of this video is not to give you all my thoughts on East of Eden. It is not to be a takedown of Harold Bloom. It's just to address this one specific, very self-confident statement that East of Eden does not bear rereading, and say with my full chest and heart that I could not more firmly disagree with a man ever in my entire life. But I am just so incredibly confident that he is so incredibly wrong that I felt the need to make this video and encourage people to reread it, try it yourself, and take a note of every single thing that you either didn't remember or for the first time are considering more deeply than you ever had before. And like I said, the situation that I read was very minor. It was very minor. It doesn't really change the themes of the book or anything. It just made me laugh. And it was the first time it had made me laugh. It gave me a deeper appreciation for Liza. I thought it was funny how much Samuel wanted to please her in that moment, and how Liza surprised both him and the reader with her reaction and her not just acceptance that Samuel will go do this act, but actually telling him, like, not only are you going to do it, you're going to do it right, or I'm going to have to handle it myself, and you don't want that. Like, that was a surprising moment for that character. So that's going to be it for this video. Like, comment, let me know down below your thoughts on this whole thing. Subscribe to my channel. I have several videos up on my channel that I've talked about Steinbeck. Like I said, I just finished The Wayward Bus, and it's interesting that I'm talking about this one because this is actually my least favorite Steinbeck to date. Now, if he had said The Wayward Bus doesn't bear rereading, I would say, you know what? Agreed. I don't think it does either. But I will get a whole video up on my review on this and say why this one just didn't work for me. But yeah, if you're interested in more of my Steinbeck thoughts or more of my thoughts on other books, you can subscribe to my channel. And yeah, stay safe, sane, and healthy. Reread East of Eden. Have a good day. Bye.